program is brought to you compliments ACB Grenada Bank, Simply Smarter Banking, and Gittens Pharmacare, the pharmacy that cares. Gittens Pharmacare, the pharmacy that cares. Halifax Street, St. George's. Affordable access to care, a wide range of prescription drugs, medical supplies, health and beauty items, diabetic testing supplies, immune system support products, vitamins, supplements, and lots more. Visit us today or call 440-2165. Ask about or call in prescriptions, discounted items, and special delivery requests. Gittens Pharmacare. Care, convenience, expertise. We've got it all.
Greetings and welcome to another edition of Interesting Grenadians. Today it's my distinct pleasure to welcome to the program Dr. Liselle Joseph, Grenada's first female aerospace engineer. Liselle, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. Liselle, let's start at the very beginning. Tell us a little bit about the field of aerospace engineering.
So aerospace engineering is basically a field that brings together aeronautical engineering, which focuses on aircraft, and space, basically. So what I've studied is both how to design aircraft and study the fluids, and also spacecraft as well. So that's where you get the aero from aeronautical and space from astro. So that's what aerospace engineering is.
Right. So let me ask you this. Give us, me and my audience, one practical example of what an aerospace engineer does.
Okay, so I mean, it's a wide range of things, but I guess the one that people would probably most understand is when you get on an airplane, an aerospace engineer designs the airplane. And when I say designs the airplane, I mean every part of the airplane, probably except the avionics, which is the electrical system. So you have aerospace engineers who study how to design wings to make sure that an airplane could go as far as you want it. So an airplane that's designed to go to America is different than one that's designed to go further, or one that's designed to go to Trinidad. And we bring all that together to make sure that the airplane can do what we want it to do. So we have aerospace engineers who design wings, who design the entire fuselage, who design the engines. I actually did that for a while. So that's probably the most practical example that people in Grenada can relate to. But it's a wide range of things that aerospace engineers do.
Let me ask you this then. Is that something that you always had an interest in, or is something you developed an interest for?
So when you've studied something for over 10 years, it's a little hard to trace back where, like exactly when you got interested in it. But I would say I wasn't always interested in it. Growing up, your interests change as you grow up. I remember the first thing I ever wanted to be was an air hostess. I wrote an entire essay on it when I was in Standard 2 at the time.
Come a long way from there, huh?
Right. So I think when I got to TAMCC, I still was interested in cars and like fast cars, sports cars. And then as I learned more about physics, all of a sudden airplanes were even cooler than that. And so that's where I think I developed the interest in aerospace. I was never really interested in the space part of it, just because I just thought there's enough stuff on Earth to do in this. So I was always interested in like supersonic jets and like fighter pilots and, you know, those cool airplanes that the military has. I just always thought those were cool. I think that's where it came from. I just wanted to understand how that works.
I think it's very interesting because what you said was sort of in your time, maybe certainly non-traditional for a woman, a girl at that time, to be interested in some of those things. You know, you talk about super jets and traditionalist men. So so was that inspired by maybe brothers or just you?
I think getting interested in cars would be my uncle, my brother, my father. They were interested in cars. I mean, my dad basically can rebuild an engine, and he's been doing that. So I was always interested in how those things work. I think the airplane part just was a step up from that. I'd never heard of it. Honestly, I didn't know what aerospace engineering was. It's when I researched, planes and how they work and how to build planes is when I understood what aerospace engineering was. So no one really inspired me for aerospace, but definitely the mechanical part of it. And actually I looked at mechanical engineering as well. So that's where I think it came from, just the women in my life weren't so interested in that, but definitely the men. And even my dad, my grandfather, my uncle, all of them have cars. They mess around with cars all the time. I think that's where I started with the cars.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. So let's track your journey. I understand that you grew up in Mount Carmel and then later in Marquis.
Yeah.
And that you went to a school I know very well, Holy Cross Primary.
Wow. Not a lot of people know it.
I know it because I was a former head of the Peace Corps here. And we had volunteers at that school. But your mom also taught at that school.
Yes. And that's why we went there.
Right, and that's why you went there. What was it like being in a school with your mom as a teacher?
I don't think it really made much of a difference, except that we were probably a little bit more careful because she was there and she would know everything we did wrong. But I don't think there was there wasn't any extra benefit per se. She was very objective and made sure we separated the home and because she taught me actually twice. She was my teacher twice. She was my teacher in kindergarten now, and then in standard 5. So that's grade 5. Grade 5. It was grades then. I was a part of the switch. Grade 5 then. So it was nice being able to ask her questions at home about homework. But other than that, no. It was really a great experience in primary school, and I don't think having her there necessarily inhibited that.
And after there you went on to secondary school, which was what, Grenville set?
Convent Grenville,
right.
Yeah.
So tell us about your experience there.
That was, I think, one of the most formative or the most formative period in my life, because when I went in there I was still a little bit immature. So, the top priority was making friends and being with the cool kids and all that stuff. And I paid attention to rumors and who was saying this. And I was for my first Form 1, Form 2. And then it was around Form 3 is when I kind of got tired of it. And I realized that basically where I want to go, these things weren't helping me. In the long run, they were immediate gratification, to be hanging out with friends and talking and laughing and stuff all the time. So that's kind of when I changed, because I started basically reflecting and reprioritizing what I wanted. And so Form 3 to Form 5, my friends were a totally different group of friends, and our goals were very different. And that's why I say it was a very formative period for me, because when I went in, I think what I wanted out of secondary school was very different than when I left.
And you were the Island Scholar. That was 2007, Island Scholar, and Marisha.
Yes, so 2007 Island Scholar was from TAMCC, but Marisha Cup was in 2005 for CXC. Yeah.
So TAMCC. So tell us about TAMCC. Is that where I guess at CXC level, you would have done a lot of physics and math and the sciences, and you continued that at TAMCC? Yes.
So I knew that I wanted to do sciences, and it's a little hard, it's a little tougher when you get good grades in everything to decide what you want to do. But I just took a moment and thought, what is it that I get most excited about? And that was maths and physics. Chemistry and biology a little bit, but not as much. So going into TAMCC, I knew I had to do maths and physics because that's what I liked. But I also did chemistry and biology because they were science related as well. And I thought, okay, diversify, and then I'll decide. And that's the same thing actually I did for CXC. When I chose my subjects, I wasn't sure where I would end up or what I wanted to do. So I had a business course in there. I had language in there. I had literature. I had Spanish, but I also had the ones that I liked. And I definitely recommend that. It just give yourself more options and give things a chance before you decide you're not good at it or you don't like it. So I did give like Spanish a try, French a try, and I realized, okay, I can do it, but I don't like it. So I definitely recommend that to students as well.
Good advice. Good advice. So from Grenada, from TAMCC, it was on to Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
And that's where you tell us a journey, but you did your bachelor's, your master's, and then your PhD in aerospace engineering. So tell us your journey through VT.
So, like you said, I got the Island Scholarship, so that really helped with funding. And I went into Virginia Tech. I had 2 years in TAMCC, so that gave me credit. So to all the students out there, take TAMCC seriously. If you get good grades, it could take a whole year off of your university studies.
Right.
And that's what happened. So I finished my undergrad in 3 years at Virginia Tech. And I went in there knowing that I wanted to do aerospace, but also leaving the option open in case I wanted to change. But I definitely fell in love with it. It was 3 great years. During that time, I learned a lot. I did a lot of summer programs. I interned at one company that makes diesel engines. So it's a little different from aircraft. And I also did some undergraduate research. And that's where I realized, yeah, I'm definitely going to do a PhD because research is what I love. So that's pretty much it. By the time I was done with the 3 years and ready to graduate, I'd actually already started my master's classes because I had already known I would be going on to that. In my last year, a lot of the classes that I took counted toward my undergrad and my master's degree.
And then it was on to your PhD, of course.
Yeah, so I did the master's. That took about 2 years. And the reason I wanted to get the master's in between is because to be a PhD student and a researcher with a PhD, it's a different way of thinking of things. You have to learn not just the equations and the science and the foundation. You have to learn how to lead a program. You have to learn how to lead people. You have to learn how to mentor students. You have to learn how to teach. You have to learn how to, write grants and get money and those sort of things as well. And so I put that buffer master's degree in there, which in the grand scheme of things, if you know you want a PhD, you could actually skip the master's and go straight to a PhD. Right. I think that's a little harder because you miss some of the skills and some of the growth that you can get in the master's. So going into my PhD from my master's, I had already been exposed to graduate level work and the amount of independence that requires because your professor at that level doesn't hold your hand or babysit you. You got to do it yourself. You got to figure it out. And you got to come up with ideas. I'd already written papers and publications at that point, which is also really a good skill to have to be able to write technical documents.
Professional journals.
Right. And I had also worked in different teams at that point. So going into my PhD, I'd already kind of led a team. I was the lab manager at that point. So I felt like I was poised to get a lot out of my PhD, which is what happened, I think. So that took an additional, I think, 4 years or something like that, because I was also involved in a lot of... Virginia Tech has this huge wind tunnel. And that I was lucky enough to do my graduate work in that wind tunnel. And so commercial partners, people like GE, people like NASA, these different companies would come in and ask us to do testing for them in the wind tunnel. And I was involved in a lot of that. And that helped me develop customer relationships and learn how to basically run commercial programs. So I did that as well as, coursework, as well as my graduate research, which was all mine. I had to figure it out and decide the path to take with that.
What was your dissertation on?
So my dissertation,
if we break it down for us.
Exactly. I'm trying to break it down. So my major field through this entire journey, when you start out in undergrad, you're exposed to everything: space, aircraft, structures, like what materials to use on the airplane, but also the fluids. And all these are different parts of aerospace engineering. You have the dynamics, like to make sure things are stable. You have a lot of different parts. So I was exposed to all of that in undergrad. And then in my master's, I realized what I really liked was the aerodynamics, which is the fluid part of it. Not so much the structures and the dynamics and stability and dynamics and so on. So for my PhD, I focused in on the aerodynamics part of it, which is study of fluid flow, because not only is that fun and I enjoy it, but it is relevant to anything. Aerospace, yes, so air, but also water, because I did work for the Navy, because water and air behave the same way. They're both fluids. So to answer your actual question, knowing that I liked aerodynamics, my PhD with the wind tunnel, I had access to the wind tunnel, was to study how basically your surface condition affects the flow and the turbulence in the flow. So turbulence is a big field. That's actually my expertise. But to explain exactly what it is, I think the easiest way to explain it is when you're on an airplane and you feel turbulence. That is actually what it is. It's unsteadiness in the air or in the fluid. So it's my dissertation was basically studying what causes that, how it works, because the actual fluctuations, there's some mechanics that go on there, and how the surface condition actually affects that. So if you have a smooth wing or you have a rough wing, how much turbulence are you going to get? How intense is it going to be?
So in the near future, when we ride a plane and we don't experience any turbulence, we can contribute that to some of your work.
Well, yes, but I don't think that will ever be possible. So I don't want to get too technical here, but the things that will come out of my work is reduction in noise, because turbulence causes noise. So like when you see fighter jets that are really quiet, it's because we manage the turbulence really well. Same thing for radar. If you're trying to detect, like a submarine or something, it has a signature that's related to the turbulence. So if we understand the turbulence, we could reduce those things. Same thing for performance. If you reduce the turbulence, you can actually use less fuel and go further. So it's things like that. And turbulence is very interesting. I'm excited about it. I could talk about it all day. But when you feel turbulence in the air, that's one part. It goes from that big to like the microscopic level where you can't even see. So it's the full range of turbulence is what I study.
Excellent. Listen, at your PhD graduation, I also noticed that you were selected by your fellow students to be the feature speaker. What was that like?
Yeah. Again, I was taken by surprise, but I guess looking back, I shouldn't have been. It wasn't my fellow students. It was actually the administration and the faculty. They basically, I think, look for students who are all-rounded and who were leaders in their respective fields, but also who did good technical work. And I guess I fit the bill, so I was selected for that. I was very proud, and I think my family was very proud. I had them there, and they were able to basically meet all my professors, see everything I've done, go see the wind tunnel, and just celebrate with me. But that was a surreal experience to speak on behalf of my class.
Since graduation, what are some of the things you've been involved with, like things that you can share, you know? And you don't have to go into great detail.
Right. So when I graduated with my PhD, most people with a PhD actually go back to work in a university. And I had the opportunity to do that, but I decided I wanted to go out into industry, meaning into a company that actually made a product, and see what that experience was like, because I had already spent my PhD years in an academic institution and writing papers and doing fundamental research. So I wanted to get the other side of it. And so I went to work at Pratt & Whitney, which is probably the leading engine manufacturing company in the world. Actually, it is. It's one of three. And I worked there for 3 years, and I got to see that side of things, what it's like to actually, I guess, tie in the fundamental physics and math that you do in school to creating a product and actually having something in your hand at the end of the day that you created based on equations and simulations that you ran. And that was very interesting and very fulfilling to be able to see that journey of an entire product from an idea to an actual product on an airplane. But I did decide that that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do with my entire life. That was a good experience, but a good experience in learning. But I decided I wanted to work in more research, but I also didn't want to go back to university and be necessarily a professor. And so that's how I ended up at my current company, which is a small research consulting company in Massachusetts. And by small, I mean less than 50 employees. And I went from Pratt & Whitney, which has over 30,000 employees.
Wow.
And that was very much intentional because I wanted full ownership of my research. I wanted the freedom to pursue my ideas. In big companies, you can't really do that as much. There's a lot of people to answer to. But here, you have more ownership. You have more space to innovate. So there's a problem in front of you and you get to decide how to solve it and pursue it. And you write grants and you get your own funding and you develop your own research basically. And that was very exciting for me. And so I work with maybe 30 something other people with PhDs here. And so that environment is just highly innovative, highly creative. Everyone's really curious. I mean, I work with physicists, chemists, biologists, electrical engineers, aerospace engineers, and it's a very diverse community and we all bring those ideas together. So like right now, my training, like I said, is in aerospace engineering, but I am working on like quantum mechanics because these programs overlap and our company just bring them all together. It's very exciting.
Nice. So let me ask you, where do you see yourself in like 5 years from here? What would you like to be doing? Continue what you're doing now or something different?
So I think I am very happy where I am right now because I have the freedom to grow. So I plan to stay here for a while, but at the same time, that doesn't mean I'll be in the same position because I have such opportunity for growth. You know, right now I'm leading one program, but hopefully I'll be leading more. But I definitely want to stay in the aerospace field. I definitely want to keep working on the space detection things that I'm working on right now. That's still exciting to me. I think the one thing I would want to add would be doing more mentorship and more community service back home, because I do a lot of that here. And a lot of times I think to myself, there are students in Grenada who are just as smart, if not smarter, than the students I mentor and tutor up here. I want to be able to help them. And it doesn't mean to help them become aerospace engineers, but help them become whatever it is that they are excited about. Because I think that's the key. Not what sounds good, not what you get the best grades in, but what excites you every day.
And that's your motto, right? Always follow what you're curious about, what excites you.
Yeah. Otherwise, it will fizzle out and you will get burnt out and you will just stop. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Tell us your name of your mom and dad and brothers and sisters.
Sure. My mom is Marva and my dad is Cyril Joseph. I have two brothers and one sister. So my sister is Desma Joseph. She actually teaches at convent now. Both my parents were teachers at one point. My mom retired. My dad ended up moving from teaching into the Ministry of Education. So that's where he ended his career, and he's retired as well. But he has a small business and he can't stop working. So he's still doing that. My younger brother, he just finished TAMCC and he's working with my dad. And my older brother passed away in 2005, but I like to bring him up and remember him because he did well. We were actually in the same year, and he got 11 subjects as well, and he wanted to do a lot of great things in science too. So,
is there anything else that you would like to say, add to this conversation?
Well, you guys, you've learned a lot about me now, so I don't think there's anything to add there. But I think if I wanted to just say a couple things to people or students who are looking to go study or do something more than teaching or banking or the regular things. Yes. I would say two things, especially to the younger people. I see that our young people are really getting caught up in immediate gratification, and whether that's due to social media or whatever, it's just they're investing a lot of their time in materialistic things that don't last very long. So the popularity, the social media stuff, the nicest phone, the nicest shoes, whatever. And I just want to encourage students to take a step back. I am not one of those black and white people. I won't tell you, no fancy clothes and no social media. I don't think that's reasonable. Right. But I would say just make sure that when you look at your day, the bulk of your time, because time is the most important thing. Right? Yes, you can't get that back. The most time of your day is spent to something that's long term. You don't put a lot of time in your day into something that in a year or so you won't even remember it. So that's the big advice I would give. I know it's kind of abstract, but I think that's the way to think about your life, or students should approach, their future, because then they can apply that to whatever. If they decide to start their own business, if they decide to study engineering or medicine or go into sports or culture or whatever, if that's what you want to do, make sure the bulk of your time is going into that and not into liming and just
wasting your time.
You can do that, but the bulk of your time should not be doing that. And I think the second thing I want to say is, you mentioned that I was, as a girl, this is not a traditional career. And I want to say that I was discouraged from doing it from a lot of people. Very, very few people encouraged me to do this. So I want to say to the young people out there, you have to listen to the right people. So the people you should be listening to are people who are in the position you want to get to. Make them your mentors. Ask their advice and listen to them, because then you won't make the same mistakes they did, right? Like if I had a mentee right now, I could tell them, hey, don't do that because I did that and it did not end well. So you want to get a mentor who's like a couple levels ahead of you in where you want to be, wherever you want to be, like I said, whatever field. The people you don't want to listen to is basically the opposite of that. For example, when I wanted to study aerospace engineering, all the people who told me I couldn't do it or that I was a girl and I would fail, it was people who didn't even know what it was. It just sounded hard. And people who didn't really understand me and how hard I work and my work ethic and the fact that I came from a Bush school and look, I was Allen Scholar, right? They didn't understand that full picture and what it took to get there. So those are the people you want to be kind to, but don't necessarily take them to heart. Otherwise, you will just be put in a box that they're in, because people can only encourage you to do things that they know a lot about. So when it's outside of their perspective, they'll think, oh, that's crazy to do that. So I guess the advice is listen to the right people. And in my view, those are the people those are the right people and those are the wrong people. So I think those are the two things that I would recommend. And if I had to say one thing to all Grenadians on a practical level, learn how to code.
Code.
Yes, learn how to write code. I know that sounds just out of the blue, but that's where the world is going.
The young people.
Yes.
The young one. Yeah. No, learn
you have
coding.
to learn how to write code.
Yeah. And why is that important? And why is that important?
Because any job, I'm an engineer and most of my days spent coding. I'm not a computer scientist, but I spend it coding. Every job now, you kind of need to know how to code something. So just start small. And if you're going to have a side hobby or something, learn how to code. You can actually write your own app and have an app on a phone.
Right.
So just, I think it's a big thing, that if young people are interested in learning a new skill, that's a good skill.
That's the future. That's a skill now.
That's where the world is moving.
Exactly. That's such great advice. And what language would you recommend? What's trending now? It changes so quickly. But
yes, it depends on your field. Like the IT folks will say Java or something. I work a lot in more engineering tools, but foundational like C++, I think would be a good one for everyone. And honestly, the language doesn't matter as much as just learning
the logic beyond it.
Yes, exactly. The logic and the algorithm. If you learn how those work, the language is something you could Google.
Gotcha.
So I just want to encourage young people to everyone should start thinking about that, because that's where we're moving to. I think in the next few years, all jobs will require some kind of coding.
Dr. Liselle Joseph, I think this is a fitting point to end with some great advice to our young people. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy lady, and I really appreciate having you on the program and conducting this interview. Thank you again so much.